sir.
Welcome to the Yoga of Radiant Presence retreat. This retreat is about one thing. I call this Yoga of Radiant Presence. And we'll go into why I call it that, and of course it's irrelevant that I call it that. We'll go into exactly what this is in a great deal of detail and many angles over the next several days. I'm sorry? Right! Yeah, that's probably our heating there, so.
The room is very absorbent. The carpet.
Yoga of Radiant Presence is about one thing, and that is reality, actuality. What is it that is actual? What is it that is real? Right here, this is real. What is it that is real? It's this building we're in. Is it real? There's all these people sitting around. Are they real? There's this carpet. There's your personality. There's your thoughts. There's your feelings. There's emotions. There's memories. They're all real. But none of them are actually that. None of them are actually what you think they are. No matter how sophisticated and subtle an understanding you have of what this is, it's wrong. Simply because this actuality right here is completely ungraspable, completely unanalyzable, completely irrational, essentially magical. It cannot be made sense of. It cannot be encapsulated in any kind of a description, no matter how sophisticated, brilliant, and elaborate. It cannot be done because of what this is. So, we have this very strange situation that this actuality is entirely transcendental. And yet, we're all very expert at holding it to be this and that, and interpreting it as being our lives, our environment, our history, what we're interested in doing, what we hope to accomplish, our hopes and fears, all of this incredible, elaborate narration, this incredible, elaborate scenario of interpretation that not just a little wrong, it's completely wrong. There's no portion of it which is correct. What this is, what is happening here, is inconceivably strange. It's inconceivably weird. This is easily seeable. And only if you let this be what it is and be with it as it is, can you ever engage with reality accurately, clearly. As long as you retain addiction to interpretation, addiction to relating to this presence in terms of your interpretations, you are in delusion, you are in confusion, you are like you're like the land of the lotus eaters or something. You're basically a crazy person. You're like a psychotic. You're believing things to be the case that are not true. So, Yoga of Radiant Presence is all about so simple recognition, just a matter of recognizing how to affect this, how do you do this yoga, how do you affect this recognition? Well, it's very simple. Attend to the very precise details of your experience, of your actual experience, of this actuality right here. and see what is there, see what you find. And you will immediately see that it does not conform to your narrations, it does not conform to your interpretations. And in that verification, you will no longer need to be addicted to approaching it in terms of your interpretations. You will be able to let it show you what it is. You will be able to discover the intrinsic infinity, which this actually is, the intrinsic unresolvability, the intrinsic openness that this actuality, it actually is, it is that, it is made of that, it consists of that. I mean, not in those terms, of course, because those are analyses, and so of course, as analyses, they're inaccurate. But nonetheless, they are indicative, they're evocative of what this actually is. So, I call this yoga of radiant presence because radiant presence is a loose and sloppy euphemism that rather nicely indicates and evokes what is actually here, what this actually is. What this actually is could poetically be said to be a shining forth from infinity, from nothingness.
Excuse me?
A shining forth from nothingness. Very much like a dream is. You know, we all have every night we go to sleep and we dream, and you know, there's no basis for any of it, right? It's not, you can dream of anything. You can dream of going to New York or flying in a rocket ship or, I mean, obviously, anything whatsoever. And it's baseless. It's not based on anything. It's not, there's no starting point for it. It's just basically cooked up out of nothing. And this experience is exactly the same, it turns out. It is a radiance, a shining forth, a presentation. And it is actual, it's real, it's present. It is. So there is this actual presence, there is an actual radiance, and there's nothing else. It's completely baseless. It's based on nothing. It doesn't come from anything. And this is difficult to fathom because the presentation is so intricate, it's so detailed, it's so, you know, self-supporting in terms of the implied logic and the implied structure of what seems to be happening. You know, the flow of time, cause and effect, you know, history, physics, all of this amazing interlocking phenomena and events, and it all sort of works together like a glorious jigsaw puzzle. And yet it's basically being improvised in real time, essentially fantastically, very much like a dream is. But theory aside, you are seeing this actuality right now. In fact, you've never seen anything else. It's impossible to see anything else because nothing else exists. This that is real, this that you may call your experience, is real, is actual, is the soul reality, is the soul actuality. You cannot find any actuality, any reality outside your experience. You know, and that's a no-brainer. Where would you look? You know, how do you look outside your experience? Well, it's a riddle. It's a joke. It's philosophy. You know, it's how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? It's an absurdity. Experience is actual. Nothing else whatsoever is actual, empirically. And the notion that anything other than that is the case is just a notion which happens with an experience, mysteriously. It just appears, like everything just appears. We'll go into great detail some tricks of a lot of specific things, specific aspects, let's say, jumping off points that you can play with your experience in order to explore this amazing condition. But some of them are the way in which things happen, things appear. You know, right now there are probably thoughts in your mind. Where are they coming from? What puts them there? And they're gone. They don't linger. There's absolutely no persistence. It's instantaneously, it appears or it disappears, and the appearance and the disappearance are one. It's not like the thoughts sort of stick around for a short duration and hang out for a while and then decide to disappear. It's not quite like that, is it? It's like a real time, it's like a wave continually breaking. And in its breaking, in its arising is its falling continually. Thought is like this. Vision is like this. If you look very carefully, you'll notice that what you see is instantaneous and is completely gone forever. In that instant, in the instant of the seeing, it's gone. And where does it come from? Every instant you see something you've never seen before. It's impossible to have the same experience of vision twice. It's impossible. It cannot be done. It's never happened before. It's never going to happen. Where does this uniqueness come from? It just bang, it's here. It's already here. Every instant, it's just here. Right at this moment, you're seeing exactly what you happen to be seeing. You didn't plan it. It wasn't contrived. There wasn't any elaborate mechanism picking it up and spitting it out. Just bang, it's here. And in that here-ness, it's gone. So, this is again, you can, if you are sensitively with the real-time flow of your experience, this will be readily apparent. The instantaneity and spontaneity of experience and the absolute non-durational nature of it. It has no persistence. It has no duration whatsoever. It may seem to, because its refresh rate is instantaneous, and in many cases the deviation from what you had apparently been experiencing seems rather slight from what you were experiencing previously. But rather slight is a euphemism for entirely different. Almost the same is a euphemism for entirely different. So in actual fact, every instant you perceive something you've never perceived before that is completely different than anything you've ever perceived. So continuity is an argument. Continuity is a kind of an imaginary creation of averages. Now is pretty close to what I was seeing a nanosecond ago, and pretty close to what I was seeing a nanosecond before that. But again, pretty close is a euphemism for entirely different. So, we can notice this. So that, in practical terms, one of the secrets of this yoga is to be precise, be very detailed, be with your experience very, very intimately. This is not a matter of painting it with sort of broad strokes and sloppiness and, no, really be with your experience. Check it out. Really check it. Be a scientist. Assume that everything you know is wrong, and here's this astounding phenomenon occurring, and it's up to you to reinvent the wheel and figure out what it is. What is happening? How is it happening? Everything you've been told is wrong. Just sort of assume that, even if it's not true. Assume everything you've been told is wrong. Be with this actuality, and see if it'll show you what it is. And your biggest challenge, of course, will be that subliminally you think you already know what it is. Subliminally, you have a lifelong history of knowing what this is, of thinking what this is, of this is light, I'm in my body, we're in a room, we're in space, this is the world, we're in a world. And, these holdings, holding these interpretations unquestionably to be objectively true, is something we typically do very subliminally, very unconsciously. So it's difficult to challenge these kinds of assumptions because we don't even know they're there. We don't even know they're assumptions. It's just sort of a feeling tone of certainty that this is real. And it is real. I mean, this is the trick that enables delusion to persist. It is real. It's just not accurate. Yeah, it's true there is a field of vision. Yeah, it's true there is a field of thought. Yeah, it's true there is sound. Yeah, it's true there is an apparent sequence of events. It's true all of these things. But if you look closely, none of that is actually accurate. We don't look closely enough. The entire edifice of delusion, the entire edifice of misinterpretation, in a sense, the entire edifice of suffering is upheld by not looking closely enough. It's that simple. If you look closely enough, none of that stuff can stand up. Because the very nature of experience reveals what it is when you look at it. It's not hidden. It's not camouflage. It's not even not obvious. It's completely obvious. But we typically don't bother to look because we already think we know. And then we're caught up in what we think we know. And hey, what are you doing today? Oh, I gotta go, I'm going down to the store and going to do this. And oh, I got a call from so-and-so. And hey, how was your night last night? Oh, blah, blah. And so we're caught up in all of this level of narration. And since that's distracting our attention, we aren't really looking at what is here. What is here? We don't question it because we think we know. We skip over that part and go on to the juicy bits of our soap opera. Go on to the juicy bits of, what we want, what we're avoiding, enacting our personality, trying to hide conceal our flaws. I mean, all the mechanisms of human personality with which people usually superficially approach their lives. And all of that is just a distraction from really seeing what is here. It's not hidden. It's actually very easy to see. It's hard to, I often say reality is very easy to see. Delusion is very hard to peel yourself away from. It's the problem is not seeing reality. The problem is our addiction to delusion. So we don't bother. We don't get off our butts. And usually, if we do, even to a partial extent of trying to be spiritual, trying to meditate, trying to look at things, it's just a relatively superficial lifestyle choice where we're, oh, I'm a meditator, or I'm a this, or I'm a that, and that just fits into our soap opera, as opposed to really stepping outside of any framework whatsoever, just nakedly into this actuality, and look and see what it is. So this is the nature, this is the essence of this yoga. These 4 days, I invite you to do nothing else. I invite you to really be with your experience. It's all about you. It's about you, how you are with your experience. This is not excuse me, sometimes my throat cramps up and I won't be able to speak for a few minutes. This is not a group endeavor. There's no group here. There's you. There's your experience. That's the only thing that is here. That's the only thing that is relevant. That's the only thing that matters. How are you with it? And every instant is a fork in the road. Every instant you can be with what is here, or you can skip over it and go into an interpretation of basically a fantasy. Every instant, that choice is, you're always at this fork in the road. So, every instant is an opportunity to see. Or, every instant is an opportunity to not see. And it's really doable. It's really a matter of doing it. So I mailed it out, so most of you have probably seen this. I have a sheet here that I prepared that goes over some of the points of this yoga in a very concise manner. And I will go over this with you point by point because it gets into some of the minutiae. You put glue on my finger.
You don't want me to do that?
It becomes obvious the way and the extent to which your previous misinterpretations of it are inaccurate, are not real, are just delusion, they're fantasy, they're nothing. They're just like the dreams of a crazy person. There's nothing there whatsoever. There's no basis for the misinterpretations. They're just spun out of fantasy. Okay. The two words, radiant presence. Presence refers to actuality, being, reality. This is, okay? Now, if you try to pin down exactly what that means or what that refers to is impossible, but it's not important. The important point is that this is actual, this is real. So that's, in other words, reality is real. I mean, that sounds trivial to say that, but it's actually very profound. This is actually real. This is the reality right here. This is it. Okay? And radiance refers to spontaneous, active, unstoppable presentation or shining forth of apparent experiential qualities that are one with presence. Okay, let's take the end of that first. So it's one with presence. It's not like there's some presence and then over here and then there's some radiance over there. The presence is radiance. The radiance is presence. You can't, if you're going to go looking for the presence, you have to look at the radiance. If you're going to go looking for the radiance, you have to look at the presence. And there's no actual radiance and no actual presence, of course, because then it would be definable, and it's not actually like that. So this, inaccurate referring to this actuality as radiant presence or as presence and radiance is a jumping off point. It's a jumping off point for inquiry and investigation to notice the one condition that is actually here. That is not actually presence or radiance, but radiant presence indicates it rather evocatively. So radiance and presence both indicate one thing. It's not like there's radiance and presence. So when you feel this presence, you can feel that this is present, right? It's completely obvious. This is present. You're actually feeling the radiance. Right? You can feel the radiance. You're experiencing the radiance for everything. You're experiencing light. You're experiencing sound. You're experiencing thought. You're experiencing everything you experience is essentially radiance. It's sort of sparkly energy appearing in your experience, and it is present. And the presence and the radiance, you can't find presence apart from radiance, you can't find radiance apart from presence. This actuality actually is this. It's spontaneous, it's just bang, it appears. You can't find any mechanism, you can't find any preparation, you don't find any rehearsal or any scripts or any maps or plans. It just bang, every instant just appears in all its inconceivable detail. Right? And forever. It's active. It never stops. There's no off switch. You can't stop this. You can't shut down presence. You can't shut down the radiance. You can't shut down the presentation. It always looks like something. Always. Even if it looks like nothing. Say you're in general anesthesia or something. That's the something that it happens to look like in that context. That's it. So it's unstoppable presentation, shining forth, of apparent experiential qualities. So there's all of these qualities, right? Color, brightness, sound, pitch, timbre, texture. You couldn't possibly make a finite list of the qualities that are designatable. Basically, you start with a dictionary, and every word in there is designating or arguing for a quality or a set of qualities, and it's not even scratching the surface. Like, how many shades of red are there? It's inconceivable. It's literally infinite. So there are these experiential qualities, and they are apparent. You can't ever find what they actually are. You can't find them, and yet they are clearly apparent. And we'll get into the unfindability a little later. But so there's these experiential qualities, And all you can say about these qualities is that they're being experienced, right? Here they are. Here's color. Here's sound. Here's, I mean, it's undeniable. That's part of the presence. These qualities are present. They are radiating. They are shining forth right here, right now, as all of this amazing show here, this amazing, inconceivably detailed field of experience, right? Okay. Radiant presence is just experience. That's all, nothing else. This is very matter of fact. This is not even esoteric. It's just this experience right here. This is what all the fuss is about. Just your normal, everyday experience. The fact of this experience that is here now, same as always, right? Same old, same old. This is what all the fuss is about. Just this. This is where to look for the treasure. You want the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Your normal experience is the rainbow. That's where you look. Okay. The essence of the yoga of radiant presence consists of actively recognizing the actuality of radiant presence as it is. So that's pretty straightforward. This is about recognizing something that is already the case, that is already happening, and recognizing it as it is, letting, not applying analysis or preconceptions or expectations to it, just, recognize this as it actually is. And it is being as it is. It is being what it is. So that's already fulfilled. That's already completely filled in. So all you need to do is notice that, recognize this actuality in just the way that it is. And this is where being with it with great detail, with great presence, with great precision comes into it, because that's how you get to the as it is part. Glossing over into delusion is ignoring the as it is part. You may be recognizing radiant presence, but you're skipping the as it is part and filling in your own script. You're filling in your own interpretation. You have all this elaborate storyline about what's going on here, and none of it's true. It's not as it is. Your starting point may be fine. Your starting point is, here's this, it's all based on this, evidentiary field of experience, but you're not stopping, you're not letting it show you what it is. You're adding to it. You're saying, but this is this, and that's that, and this is the other, and this is happening, and that happened, and this is what it all means, and gosh, I'm screwed. It sucks being a human. And it's all a misinterpretation. It's all a big misunderstanding. So, actively recognizing the actuality of radiant presence as it is, and that it is comprehensive. There's nothing else. This field of your normal experience is the totality of reality. It's a whole shooting match. There's no God outside it. There's no future. There's no past. There's no nothing. There's just this simple fact is the only fact. And every fact whatsoever is within it. Is an implication of it. Is an aspect of it. So it is the mother lode. It is everything and anything whatsoever is from it, in it, of it, is it. So it is comprehensive. It's the sole constitution of any and all phenomena. That's just reiteration of that. It is independent. It's based on and existing in nothing but itself. It's not coming from anywhere else. It's not sitting on anything else. It's not some device or mechanism over here that's somehow doing it and churning it out. It just is. It bootstraps itself up out of what? It's just miraculous. You can't say. It's just, here it is, and it's not from anything. It's not to anything. It's not related to anything. It has no dependence on any other condition or status or actuality whatsoever. It is dependent on itself. It's doing itself. How is that possible? It's absurd. It's miraculous. Yes, it's absurd. It's miraculous. Yes. but see the truth of that. See the unfindability of anything else. Anyway, and each of these little things is a sort of a seed that is endlessly expandable. But don't worry about that for now. We'll just touch on all this stuff, and this is what we're going to be living with for the next 4 days rather intensively, or at least you're invited to. It's up to you. No other actuality whatsoever. Can't find anything else. This is it. The practice of this yoga consists of noticing the actual aspects of one's experience. And the notice actual is capitalized there. So again, and noticing is being defined as a conceptual experiential exploration. Now you notice I didn't say non-conceptual, because it's not, this experiential exploration does not exclude concepts, but it's not based on concepts, it's not oriented to concepts. It basically, the concepts are irrelevant, one way or the other. Whether they're there or not, whether you're thinking or not, is not the point. That's just part of the stew of this experiential exploration. So the practice of this yoga consists of noticing the actual aspects of one's experience. That's the entire yoga right there. So notice what is actually here. Notice what this actually is. Notice what anything actually is. Notice what any portion of your experience actually is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your starting point is. You will find the same thing, because there's only one thing here. There's only one actuality, and it exists in one way. So anywhere you look, you will find. It doesn't matter where you look. It doesn't matter what your starting point is. It doesn't matter what your jumping off point is. And now I list some suggestions of some notions to play with that are arguable aspects of one's experience. Of course, since they're delineatable, they aren't accurate. They're not true. But these can be jumping off points, sort of diving boards that you can jump off of into the actuality of experience and find out the way what is actually here is. Sort of a priming the pump with some of these kinds of notions. It itself spontaneously perceives this presentation with absolute intimacy. So what's seeing? This is manifestly being seen, being perceived. What's perceiving it? Where is the perceiver? Is there a perceiver sitting over somewhere in the back of your head, or on a shelf somewhere, or up in the sky or somewhere? You go looking for a perceiver, you can't find one. And yet, perceiving is clearly happening, let's say. Maybe. So that perceiving is happening is an aspect of this. So since this is one thing, if there's perceiving happening, this one thing is doing that. Right? And this presentation, in other words, the vast spectrum of experiential characteristics, right, is being perceived with absolute intimacy. Nothing is blocked. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is concealing anything else. It's all nakedly, completely nakedly displayed, completely nakedly accessible. There's nothing that's actually not available for exploration, not available for going into experientially, let's say. Okay? There is an infinite, ubiquitous, fractal meaningfulness embodied in this. Okay? This is not just some inert event, some mechanical pile of marbles or corks that someone left lying around. There's an inconceivable, intelligent structure, meaningfulness. All human meaningfulness is just a paltry scratching of the surface. It's a profound meaningfulness that is found in every minuscule or macro aspect of this inconceivable functionality that's being enacted here. So this is not inert, this is not dead, this is not mechanical, this is not boring or dull. On the contrary, it's pregnant with infinite meaningfulness, infinite intelligence, infinite innuendo and implication. And this meaningfulness is fractal. It doesn't have parts. Anywhere you look, you find the whole thing. You find is a touchstone, a touching point for this whole edifice of meaningfulness that just spreads out and includes everything. It's not partial. It's not structural. Where there's this has meaning and that has meaning. It's like no. You touch any portion of it, and the meaningfulness is just the meaningfulness that's revealed there is the same meaningfulness that's revealed everywhere in different sort of call it ratios or aspects or proportions of dominance of qualities and what have you. I mean, obviously it's beyond analysis. And so it presents as infinitely differentiated without ever departing from itself. This is very interesting. There's all these qualities. Look at, how many colors, how many shades of color are there? How many intensities of light are there? How many different qualities of thought are there? How many, anything. It's stupefying. Even within one small portion or one small aspect of the field of your experience, that is infinite. So then you start adding other portions, and that's infinite, and more portions, and they're infinite. And if you start looking very closely, you'll find infinite fields of experience. As humans, we're used to, in terms of consensus reality, we're very used to classifying, the five sense fields, and this mind is a sense field, and so on. So there's, we're kind of consist of 6 sense fields. It's hogwash. It's bullshit. We are an infinite field of infinite qualities, and most of them, the vast majority of them, are not classified within the 6 senses. There's all these subtle vibes, tingles and weirdness. There's nothing but quality. And these qualities are just an infinite field, and this field is the field of your experience. Typically we straitjacket ourselves by, there's only 6 senses, it's only 5 senses, and then there's mind, which isn't really anything, and that's all everything is, and here I am, and I'm just this limited being. The evidence against that is laughably absurd. It's just infinity piled upon infinity and piled upon infinity, just in a small portion of any of it. It's mind-boggling. And so very quickly, and just looking at this infinite differentiation, this just completely devastates any notion of smallness or being contained or being stuck in something. It's laughable. And it never departs from itself. All this differentiation is just this radiance. It's just this presence. It's not like, there's, an infinite number of different qualities, so they're all just, so that means there's an infinite number of different things, and God, how am I ever going to sort that out? It's just one thing here. It's one thing, one reality, one actuality, this radiant presence. And miraculously, and completely inconceivably, there's no way you can wrap your head around it, it presents as infinite differentiation. How weird is that? It's like a dream, You can dream of absolutely anything, and yet every single thing you experience is just dream. It never departs from dream. So whatever presents never departs from the soul actuality, the soul presence, the soul event that is actual, that is here, that is actually experienced. Okay. It is transcendental. That is, it is entirely irrational, unanalyzable, unresolvable, essentially miraculous. It has no parts, no process, no aspects, no mechanism. There's no way you can figure out how this is happening. There's no way. It can't be done. So this is irrational. You can't analyze it. It's not amenable to analysis. It's unresolvable. You can't actually even find what anything is. The closer you look at it, it morphs and what you thought you were looking at turns out to be something else, and then you look at that and that turns out to be something else, and you look at that and that turns out, and so you're just going down this endless rabbit hole of morphing experiential qualities forever. You never get to the bottom, and none of it bears any relationship to where you thought you started. So this seeming simplicity, on the contrary, is just endlessly elusive, endlessly slippery, endlessly miraculous. This is what I refer to as transcendental. It transcends any mode of approaching it. It transcends any mode of trying to explain it or capture it or deconstruct it or anything like that. Okay, etc. This is just a random tossing off of notions that are interesting jumping off points to begin to look at this. And again, none of them are accurate, none of them are true. Because they're sayable, the actuality is not that. But they're good, they may be good jumping off points just to sort of play with, to sort of to look at it in terms of that, and then see what the actuality actually is when you sort of start from that as a premise. And of course the actuality will very rapidly transcend your starting point, as it inevitably will with anything. Okay. These aspects are not discrete actualities, but are points of investigation into the discovery of this soul unique transcendental condition. So that's they're just they're teasers. Yeah. It's like you go to the movie theater and they play a short, which is not the movie, but it's supposed to get you all hyped up about it. That's what these are. These are like the shorts. The shorts, the reality shorts. Okay. Having discovered and explored the nature of this actuality by noticing, one rests in it, as one always has. This is not anything new. You've always been this. You always will be this. I mean, literally always, as a matter of fact. Nothing is changing. Nothing is coming. Nothing is going. And so, in discovering what this is, nothing new happens. You simply are home, where you've always been, and yet you recognize it. You know, you get to appreciate it, you get to enjoy it, you get to kind of look around and go, yeah, pretty cool. Instead of looking around and going, God, my life sucks. You can do that too. If you have a taste for the Baroque. Okay, now here's a footnote about noticing, which you remember I defined earlier as aconceptual, experiential. Aconceptual, experiential exploration. Noticing is possible because it's already occurring. In other words, how do you notice? How do you be with the experience afresh? Well, it's already occurring. You're already with your experience fresh. Every instant is a moment of noticing. Already, always has been. It's a moment of, wow, what's happening here? What's here? Every moment you're being startled. Every moment you're being surprised. Every moment you're being, shown newness. You're being, the subtlety and the open dimensionality of actuality is being clearly displayed to you. So this has always been occurring. This is not anything new. So noticing is possible. In other words, how do you do a conceptual experiential exploration when you're theoretically in the habit of not doing it? Well, in actuality, you always have been doing it. You've always been doing the yoga of radio presence. What this is about is getting efficient about it. Experience is that anyway. Experience is the spiritual path. I mean, being lost in delusion lifetime after lifetime and suffering and being, all these pathetic life forms saying, why me? All of that is this path. It's a self-correcting path. But it has a very long arc. And this is a trick. This is a trick, potentially. Could be. It's a trick that may be a shortcut that enables you to get a little more efficient about jump-starting the process by engaging in it more with a much quicker refresh rate than these lifetime-long diversions into dullness. So, noticing is possible because it's already occurring. the spontaneous perceiving aspect of experience having an inherent recursive nature. It actually experiences itself, experiencing itself, experiencing itself. In other words, this experiencing is looking at itself experiencing. Of course, what else could it look at? It's like when you dream at night, the dreaming is looking at the dreaming, looking at the dream being dreamed, because there's nothing else to look at. So it's not like you're trapped in a chair somewhere being forced to experience your experience and you're sitting over here and the experience is on the contrary, you always have been experiencing yourself, experiencing this, and it's endlessly recursive. If you want to try and do head games with it, you can imagine just sort of an infinite loop of an infinite regress of it, experiencing itself. But so the spontaneous perceiving aspect, the fact that there is this miraculous function of perceiving itself, perceiving this actuality is perceiving itself. It consists of a perceiving of itself, let's say. There's nothing here but perceiving itself. Just like in the dream, there's nothing there but perceiving the dream, which is perceiving itself, basically. It has this inherent recursive nature. It experiences itself, experiencing itself. Because there's nothing else to experience. What else is it going to experience? What else is it going to look at? You can't look outside. Outside of what? Where? What outside? Where do you find that? So it can notice that it is doing that, since it already is. This is the magic trick that enables noticing to happen, because it already is. It's not like you need to develop some new power, some new functionality. Well, here I've been lost in dullness and lost in my fantasies. How am I going to muster up this amazing trick of being able to actually look at myself experiencing, see what's here? Well, you already are. So it's actually very easy. You just notice that. Notice that noticing is happening. And how can you do that? Because you already are. So it gets, obviously, if you sort of go around that merry-go-round a few times, it gets so silly. But nonetheless, in practice, this is something that we can take advantage of. Okay, now I'm going to go back to our friend Jesus. This is my paraphrase of a quote from the Gospel of Thomas, which supposedly is a word of Jesus Christ. Seek until you find. When you find, you will be troubled. Then you will marvel and rule over the all. Okay. So seek until you find is pretty clear. Seek until you find. Look at this, check it out, and see what it is. Look and see what this is as it actually is. You have a context, and yet you are. You still are. You still have a job. You still have your family. You still have all these things. Whatever. Still whatever. Whatever happens, so-called, and so on. So this is a strange thing, and it can be troubling. It can be perplexing. It can be pretty weird to sort of really get real about this. You get real with this stuff and go, my God, this is not philosophy. This is not some trippy meditation experiences. This is reality. Is really, really bizarre, and no one knows it but me and a handful of other people. And maybe they don't know it, they just are pretending they do. How can I know what they know? So you're basically all alone, which you are. You always have been all alone. There's nothing here but your field of experience. There never has been. And of course you see that too. You discover you alone exist, and that's pretty bizarre. Because everyone else doesn't go away. Just because you exist. So anyway, so this can present some interesting conundrums, shall we say, when you begin to really get that this stuff is real. You're ready to say, wait a minute, this is for real. This is not just like amusing mind games and trippy like philosophy games. There's something very, very, very strange going on here, and it's me, and no one else seems to know. Okay. But it wins, it trumps, because it's real, it's actual. And all this consensus reality stuff is just crazy people. It's wrong, it's fantasy, it's delusion, it's just not true. It's not like you need to go out and proselytize and tell everyone, hey, you're a crazy person. Because they wouldn't hear you. Because crazy people don't know they're crazy. So it's just how it is. So you find yourself in a very strange situation where you're living in a real world, and there's all of these apparitions that are presenting all of this semantic patterning that is complete fantasy, complete delusion. It's like, oh, okay, but you will marvel and you will rule over the all, because you discover that you are this miraculousness. There is no separate you. There is no human being. There is no sentient being. There is no separate being. There just is this miracle, and it's you. You are this. There's nothing else than this miracle. In actuality, that's actually how it is. It actually is like that. And so, of course, you rule over everything because you do. Because what this is its own God. What this is doing itself magically, miraculously, in real time, with absolute authority. So this statement, supposedly by Jesus, is a really concise exposition of the yogi's experience in realization. In fact, I commend, as an aside, if you go to the links on my website, I have several of the chapters in Gospel of Thomas highlighted that are specifically very precise yogic instructions in highest yoga. And this is one of them. And that whole text is, some of it's kind of garbled and sort of hard to make sense of the allegories and stuff. But some of it is very targeted, very specific, and very clear advanced yogic instruction. So, this is the yoga of radiant presence. Right here, right now. Always has been, always will be. And we're here for the next X days to explore and celebrate that fact. And so, in terms of how to handle yourself in this retreat, do whatever you want. You're free. You're like you always have been. But if you want to get maximum mileage out of this experience, remember that the challenge is habit. The challenge is normalcy. The challenge is our normal worldview, our normal interpretation of who we are and what our history is. And it can be very easy to fall into that, particularly in interpersonal relationships. You're sitting around bullshitting with people, all these kinds of things. And now, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. And you can even do that and do noticing at the same time. But it can be a challenge. So, and that's fine too. If you just sort of get sucked into all that stuff, that's no harm, no foul. It's all good. But for maximum mileage for the next 4 or 5 days, I recommend really attend very, very precisely to your real-time experience, to see the experiential field in all of its precision, in all of its intimacy. Intimacy is a good mantra for this yoga. Experience is not at a remove. When you see, there's not a you over here and a scene over there. What is seen and the seer is one. Where you see is here. What you see is here. So this is absolute intimacy. This experience intrinsically is that. So be with this intimacy. Be with your experience as an intimacy. And this is already happening. This is not something you need to ramp up. You don't need to, I have to be present. I have to be, it's not like that. The intimacy in the presence is already a done deal. It's already doing itself. So you just relax, kick back. And the noticing is not effortful. Noticing is enrichment. Noticing is a seduction. Noticing is luscious. And it's just the normal lusciousness of the experiential field. The experiential field is delicious. All of this being caressed by all these colors and textures and thoughts and vibes and sensations. It's just like an endless, infinite symphony of qualities, just continually wafting and morphing. with profound implications in meaningfulness and intelligence, right? Always just doing itself. Doesn't need to be done. Doesn't particularly need to be attended to. And yet you can attend to it. Here it is. And so this is really just a matter of enjoying. You could say it's hedonistic yoga because it's a matter of enjoy your experience as experience. Enjoy the texture of experience. Enjoy the lusciousness of your experience. And that way you be with the energy of it, which is the radiance. This is all about being with the radiance. Instead of being with, designations of, I'm in a room, or I'm with people, or no, you're not. You're just with radiance. That's all you actually are. You're with radiance. And so notice this, feel the texture of experience itself. I mean, another very simplistic way of putting this, it's very clear, I think, is you've never experienced anything other than experience. When you see me sitting here gesticulating and saying all sorts of ridiculous stuff, you're actually seeing you're seeing nothing but experience. You're not seeing me. You're seeing your experience of me. And the of me is pure hypothesis. You're imagining it's of me. You're seeing experience. When you hear something, you're hearing experience. When you feel something, you're feeling experience. I'm not feeling a chair under my butt. I'm feeling experience. And I may argue, but it's the experience of a chair. But that's all hyperbole. That's all a claim. The naked fact, the immediate fact, is the presence of experience. And this is the essence of radiant presence, the actual presence of experience, which is textural, which is qualitative. It presents us an infinite range of characteristics. But the characteristics are not of objects. The characteristics are of experience itself. You've never experienced anything other than experience. Like in a dream. In a dream, you've never experienced anything other than a dream, which is, of course, experience. There's no objects there. There's no things. There's no situations. There's no space. There's not even any time. There can seem to be those things. It's arguable and interpretable that it's like that those are actual aspects of it. But it's not really the case, because all you ever experience in a dream is dreaming. And dreaming can look as if it was that way in those things, but it's all just dreaming. This is all just experience. It's your experience. And this is the yoga of radiant presence, is being with this fact of the presence of your experience, this radiance, this presence. Well, it's been a long day. Some of you have been traveling for a long time, and I'm sure you're pretty toasted. Some of you have been traveling a lot less of a time, but I know some of you are pretty toasted too. Any questions about anything about the retreat or about what we've been talking about? Don't worry too much about the details of all this. We'll be going in and out of this like psychotic weavers over the next 2 days. Yeah.
I have a question. Like when I hear you talk, I'm drawn to what you're saying. That's like my attention is totally on that. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But like, is there something in experience that's more gripping, like what you're saying, than like, let's say, that light up there? I mean, is that light just as sort of powerful in the sense of experiences?
Right, I hear you. Well, intrinsically it is, but not necessarily experientially, because certain things may seem to come to the fore. And again, meaningfulness is fractal. So if something seems to be in the foreground, seems to be profoundly meaningful, you're touching the same meaningfulness that is being embodied in things which seem to be less present. So, for example, if you're following my words or following my intent, then simultaneously with that is also present all the qualities that you're not so specifically following. And they are intrinsically, if you happen to be following them, instead of, if you were ignoring what I was saying and checking out that light, you'd actually be getting the same meaningfulness. So there's not like the one is intrinsically truer or more valuable than the other. But it's not important that things should come to the forefront. It's not important if your attention should be drawn to emphasize a focal point, let's say, within experience, within the texture of experience. That's not important at all. And yet you can play with that. You can play with being with the field. Be with the field of your experience sort of as a uniformity. Or you can relax and just notice how the attention will tend to pull out foci. It tends to focus on things. It tends to notice this and notice that, and all these particularities. And it's all fine. There's no better or worse. Because again, there's no actual differentiation. When you hear my words, you're hearing all of reality. When you look at that light, you're looking at all of reality. It's not like reality is big and that light is a small part of it and my words are a small part of it. It's not like that. Reality is not big. Reality is one thing. And it presents as that light, it presents as my words, it presents as this big space. But none of that is actual.
Right, so any point contains the whole.
Yes. Any point of contact is your vehicle for noticing. And it doesn't matter what it seems to be. It doesn't matter if it's, very zoned in or very spread out or anything in between. Just whatever happens to be there, that's it. But we can get into these kinds of details over the next couple of days.
Yeah, along these lines, I think it's like, so I kind of want an entree into I could hard to use the word deeper level of reality, and there's a certain suffering,
right,
or for this term, to my normal
right,
view. But and then there's this word that's not adequate either, but a lot better one of nostalgic. And for me, it's like I'm noticing of late, like even over the course of a few days, and it's like, oh, this is like spring, this is like summer, this is like autumn, this is like winter, and
all in 1 week.
Or maybe a holiday, Easter, or whatever that means. So, and you use words like feeling, texture,
right,
and words like noticing. So, and there's somebody of voice in it that says, okay, well that's fantasy or escape, or there's something that says that.
Which is fantasy or escape?
What
I'm saying, or
no? When I'm feeling, this is like spring,
okay,
this is like
right.
Easter.
Yeah.
The naysaying voice will say, "Oh, that's fantasy or escape,"
right?
Or this reminds me of when I was in Oregon and enjoyed it.
Right.
Oh no, this is L.A. You can't feel that.
Right, I hear you. Okay, right. That's good.
Okay, so anyway, so it's like. To me, that's a deeper level of reality, and there's less suffering with that.
Right.
And there's certain implications to that in my mind. It's like, okay, it's not like I'm intentionally doing this stuff.
Right.
It's being created, and in the creation, there's this recognition, and there's, and then I can think that can expand to maybe to every moment, but in these little nostalgic moments where. In a way, it's sort of like ruling over the all in a sense. But so that's I'm playing with the notion that or my experience that is my entry into this deeper seeing, this more satisfactory seeing, and
when you say that is your entry, what specifically do you mean?
When the quote nostalgia
arises,
right, and there's a feeling of texture,
right,
flavor,
yeah. Good.
And I experience that, and I own that, and I recognize that, and I see that. That to me, I mean, unless the voice is right and says, "Oh, yes, that's crazy, that's it." But no, I say it's not like intentionally created, but it's being created. It's real.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
more
Okay.
real.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Delusion, i.e., let's say interpretation, is real. It's actual. And this is how we take advantage of, in this yoga, of using delusion as noticing. And exactly that. You be with the texture of it. Because when delusion is present, let's say an interpretation is present, or an emotion is present, or a mood is present, it's made of something. There is something that is actually present, that is then being interpreted and so on. And that something is a textural presence, i.e. radiance. And so feel the texture of anything. So when you're with delusion, when you're with thought, when you're with reactivity, when you're with these things, feel the texture of what's actually present. It's all about being with what's actually present. It's what's substantially present, the substance of experience.
Yeah,
And you
I
can
don't
do
want
this.
to call it delusion when I have that sense of nostalgia or whatever. To me, it's like it's more real. It's less suffering. You know, and,
Right.
And to me, that
Well,
is
what
the
I mean is,
entrance.
what I mean
Yeah.
is, if it's linked to a specific interpretation, that
Yeah.
interpretation is, harmonically speaking, relatively delusional.
Yeah.
And again, this is kind of splitting hairs. So in other words, gosh, this really reminds me of 3 springs ago when I such and such and such and such and story. So that's sort of a harmonic of delusion. But the harmonic of delusion is evidence. It's supported in a carrier wave of actual energy, of actual radiance.
Yeah.
So the trick is to feel that.
Yeah.
In other words, feel the substance of the experience, and not denying. It's not about fighting or trying to turn off delusion, because that gives the delusion importance. You get to saying it's real. Delusion is real, but delusion is real radiance, and so that's the point: is to be with the presence of the experience of whatever you're calling it. Whether you're calling it interpretation or a nostalgia or a sense impression or whatever, it's not about what you're calling it, it's about the presence of it
Yeah.
as an experiential actuality.
That isn't.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's right. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say. That
Yeah.
there may be some remembrance of, that's kind of
Yeah.
reminds
Just don't worry about that.
Yeah, don't worry about that. But
Yeah.
I
Just try and.
I notice it apart from my normal experience, but to me it's an entry point.
Yeah, good. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Be with the richness, the experiential richness of any experience. Because any experience is far richer than it at first seems to be, especially at narrations and interpretations, which can seem at first to be sort of relatively one-dimensional. Yesterday I did such and such. It seems like a one-dimensional thread. But it's actually a one-dimensional harmonic on an experiential richness of the experience of the present moment. So the trick is to tune into the richness.
And that's satisfying.
Yeah, that's the point. It's totally satisfying.
Without-
You're being with
without-
transcendental reality, and if that ain't satisfying, I don't know what you want. You got high standards, really high goals. Anyway, it's been a long day. Tomorrow morning we start off at 9 with a non-meditation.
Yeah.
For those of you that haven't meditated with me before, it will be fun. Yes?
I wanted to point out, there was a mistake on the itinerary that was sent and which is printed out. All sessions are here
Okay,
in the
good.
sanctuary,
Yeah.
not in Noble Hall.
Right. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Everything's good. So 9 o'clock here, there will be an experiment that we'll laughingly call a meditation. And then things will take off from there. So I invite you to really enjoy the richness of the experience. And just that is the entire vehicle to complete realization. Just this richness. And it's not some richness that isn't right here, right now. Just this actual richness is the entire path. No elaborations required. And on that, I wish you a lovely evening, and I will see you at 9. I'll probably be at breakfast at 8, of course, so I'll probably see you there, but that's social. So.
Oh.
The title is just a title, but under that is a quote from the Gospel of Thomas, which illustrates rather precisely that Jesus was teaching his highest yoga. We'll go back to that after we've gone through the whole thing, because it illustrates the entire cycle of this process rather accurately. Okay. The yoga of radiant presence is discovering what experience actually is. Period. The only spiritual problem whatsoever is if one does not know what this is. And the only solution to the absolute pinnacle, the absolute essence of reality, the essence of spirituality, is discovering what this is. It's that simple. It's that simple. Either being with this as it is, or missing it. That's simple. It's very, very, very simple. Just one thing. Once this actual condition is discovered, one's previously held misinterpretation of what this is disproved and gradually relinquished. So, this condition is actual. This is not something that you need to aspire to, or try to create, or try to achieve or get from outside yourself, or even find. The condition that